for the World Cycling Championship. 1983 World Champion Greg LeMond leads a world-class field of cyclists through a grueling road course requiring strength and endurance.
In few sports are the limits of human endurance challenged as they are in cycling. Capacities for physical and mental abuse are stressed to absolute maximums in a relentless individual quest for world championship acclaim. The setting is northern Italy, where 178 riders from 23 nations have gathered for the World Road Racing Championships of Cycling. Hello, I'm Gary Gerald, and we're pleased to welcome to our Sports World broadcast team for our coverage of the World Championships, Olympic gold medalist Mark Gorski, who will be lending his insight and his expertise into our coverage. Now, obviously, the World Championships have attracted the finest professional riders to be found anywhere, more than 175 in this competition, and the focus seems to be on two men. The famed Frenchman Bernard Hinault, 5 times winner of the Tour de France, and the young American Greg LeMond, who in 1983 stunned the cycling world with the first ever gold medal won by a U.S. rider in the championships. But this, Mark, is really a story much more than the two men, Hinault and LeMond.
Well, that's right, Gary. You've got several other riders that are going to be major factors in this race. LeMond and Hinault are going to be a little tired. They've had a long, tough season. They're not going to be as well rested for this event as they'd like to be. Among the other riders, you've got Sean Kelly from Ireland. He's a very, very tough sprinter. Phil Anderson from Australia. He's always an aggressive rider. And this World Championship could be decided by a sprint.
Now, the physical conditioning of these men is of the paramount importance. The course today, a staggering total of better than 165 miles. Let's take a closer look now at the circuit. And after a start at level elevation, there's an immediate climb of better than 500 feet, leading to what can be a very tricky downhill portion.
Well, once the riders reach the top of the climb, they've got a twisty turning descent. And at this point in the race, they can try and make a breakaway, get several seconds advantage. They'll be out of sight and out of mind of the riders behind them.
And once they successfully make that descent, they come into a flat portion once again, and the last 3 miles of each lap are on flat ground. So most likely we're anticipating that we'll see a sprint toward the finish. Now, the event is already underway. Let's go back and take a look at how it all began earlier in the day as this massive field pulled away from the grandstand area here at the start-finish line, anticipating roughly 6.5 hours in the saddle.
Well, in a race of this length, you don't really have any action until after 40 or 50 miles of racing.
Over the first 35 miles, Schlafhoff of West Germany and Eriksson of Denmark, here in the red jersey, opened up a 2.5-minute lead before they were reeled in by the pack. Hinault, the Tour de France winner, also had problems with a puncture. He's coming back after a serious knee injury.
Last year, I was handicapped by that injury, but since the end of 1984, I've not thought about it, and everything has been okay ever since.
As evidenced, of course, by his victory in the Tour de France this year. Thanks to help from teammates who pulled him back into the competition, the early problems for Hinault were solved, and as we join action now, we're roughly 100 miles into this 165-mile World Championship test. No surprises thus far. Everything seems to be settling into a fairly routine start, Mark.
We haven't seen any decisive moves by a LeMond or a Roche or an Anderson at this point. A break is in progress with an American, Doug Shapiro, who I think at this point is trying to cover any early moves, trying to help out LeMond at this point.
Now, how important is this business of help? It's really virtually impossible in a race of this length for just 1 or 2 riders to get off and do it on their own.
Yeah, but the thing is, LeMond wants to make sure that no dangerous riders are getting away at an early point in the race.
Now, this is Doug Shapiro. You see him in the Stars and Stripes, who is in this group, a Swiss rider. You saw the cross. And a couple of teammates working together here representing Belgium.
There are not any real strong, aggressive riders, any real, what I would consider favorites in the break at this point. It's not a dangerous group or a group that's going to stay away till the finish of the race.
Now, what do they do specifically to try to work for each other, Mark?
Well, the basic idea is that he's sacrificing his own chances to win by having a representative from the United States helping LeMond in the breakaway, in case that breakaway would get 2 or 3 minutes up the road, Doug could impede the progress of the breakaway, not help the group, and work against the other riders so that they lose their advantage and will get caught eventually.
And the European term that we hear frequently is domestique.
That's right, which basically means a worker.
Oh, we've got a problem. Here's an incident, a major incident. We've got several riders on the pavement and a great deal of confusion as the rest of the pack has come across this accident scene. The first real problem that has now surfaced thus far in the championship, and there appears to be an American rider in that group.
There is one American rider down and a couple other Americans that have been slowed down by the crash. Frankly, Gary, I'm a little surprised we've had a crash like this in a pro road race.
And, of course, this is the lead group unaware of what's transpired behind them. This is going to work greatly to their advantage, I would think.
That's right. And when a crash occurs, there's a lot of pandemonium. The riders up front get very anxious. The race tends to spring out. And you can see that there's a lot of action down there around the crash. Riders are trying to get wheels put back together so they can get going and continue the race.
So a good deal of confusion now. It's for the first time a major incident. We look now at the lead group, unaware of what's happened behind them. Of course, the word will be filtering to them from team coaches along the way very shortly as they'll realize that now they're in a select group. They have broken away from the field. And we'll be back with more of the World Road Racing Championship from Northern Italy after this. European nations, cycling is a way of life among the general populace, but while the masses pedal at their leisurely pace, the finest road racing professionals in the world continue their determined pursuits of international prestige here in the Montello region of northern Italy. And at the moment, no one has yet to really break out on a serious bid to spread the field, but as you can see, the main pack now is in the process of reeling in those leaders that had the luxury of being out in front when we had that first incident, that crash that eliminated several riders.
Well, the earlier breakaway did not realistically plan to stay away, I don't think. The main group is catching them. They were not working in an organized fashion.
And a feeding process now going on as they come through this start-finish area.
It's very important for them to eat at this time well into the race because they need their energy for the finish of the race.
Now, what type of nutritional support are they getting here?
Well, they're eating rice cakes, bananas, fruit, things that are easily digestible.
And how many times does that happen over the course of 165 miles?
Well, they will generally eat every lap, every other lap, and take in a lot of liquids, too. Keeping yourself with water and other juices is very important.
Danish rider Jens Vegerby in red started a break here, but now it's the Irishman McCormick in green who has moved out in front.
Alan McCormick, they call him the Leprechauns, leading the break here. This would be a great story if he could get away at this point and lead the group.
Here's another problem on the climb here on the 12th tour of 18. We've got another massive pileup, and again we see American riders involved. You can clearly see stars and stripes, at least 2 of the American riders involved in this second major incident of the competition.
And you can see the rider in white at the right edge of your screen is going to hit a spectator. There's a very tight portion of the course. The spectators are very close, and crashes are really inevitable.
And with a crowd of some 300,000 lining this circuit, that is a problem that these riders face all day long. 5 men have now broken away from this latest incident. In the 5, there's the Frenchman Arnaud, Van de Velde from Holland, Ireland's McCormick, Bombini, the Italian, and Vegerby from Denmark. 5 men out in front as the rest of the group now tries to get sorted out after that major crash on the climb on the 12th lap.
These riders are very interested in breaking away. They've got their heads down, pounding, hammering those gears. And the riders behind, I think, are going to have to really work to catch these guys because they're working hard.
Now, we're 2/3 of the way through a 165-mile test. You can see that one of the Swiss riders here handing something back to his mechanics or his crew after he was involved in the incident trying to make repairs. You're 2/3 of the way. Is it still too early for this group of 5 to significantly get out here and be a threat to win?
I think it's a little early for this group of 5. I don't think they'll stay away to the finish. You can see on your screen how big of an advantage they have here. They've gained over a minute in a very short time, and they're working very, very hard. I think that a couple other riders may try and join them. That may be the breakaway that wins the race, but it is a little early yet.
McCormick in green now out in front after Vegerby and the red and white had been leading, but this 5-some now, and this could be the first true serious break. And again, Mark, you pointed out how hard they're working as we're now down on the flat portion of the course.